Okay, in this video I'm going to be talking about using the major pentatonic scale to add fills and embellishments to a simple chord progression. And I love this kind of thing, and it's a really great way of adding a bit more interest to your rhythm guitar parts. Now, I suppose this kind of thing is mostly associated with Jimi Hendrix, though of course he wasn't the first or the only player to do this kind of thing, and you hear it a lot in soul and R&B guitar, and many more modern players do this kind of thing all the time as well. I'm going to start by having a bit of a play, and I've got a loose plan, but I'm going to try and improvise some stuff. And I hope what you find is that once you're familiar with these basic ideas and concepts, that you're able to just run with them and come up with some interesting and spontaneous parts of your own. So let me play, see what happens, then we'll talk about it. Let me start by talking about the major pentatonic scale, what it is and why it's so useful. And I think one of the ways of thinking about the scale is it's a major scale with a couple of the notes removed. So for this lesson we're in the key of G, and if we think about the G major scale, we've got G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, back to G. The G major pentatonic scale is G, A, B, D, E, and then back to G again. So you can see that we've removed the C note and the F sharp note, and those notes are the 4th and the 7th, and they are arguably the problematic notes when it comes to making music with the major scale. So by removing them we've got a nice melodic, great sounding scale. Notice also that the scale perfectly fits a major chord. It contains the important chord tones. It's got the triad in there, so we've got the root, the 3rd and the 5th. And we've also got a couple of what you could describe as colour tones. We've got the A and the E, so the 2nd and the 6th. And those are always nice and easy to use as well, and they always sound great. So if you don't already know this stuff, it's certainly worth learning some of the most common major pentatonic scale fingerings. And ultimately I think you want to know it all over the fretboard in all of the different keys. And one further thing that I strongly recommend is learning the scale in association with common chord shapes. And that way it's very easy to access the notes, whether you're using them to play a guitar solo, or in the case of this video we're using the notes to create fills and embellishments. I've previously done a video on major pentatonic scale shapes, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but let me just show you what I mean by associating the scale pattern with chord shapes. So if we've got this G chord here, you want to be able to see your G major pentatonic scale surrounding that chord shape. And then moving through the other positions of the scale, so we've got this kind of D form. There's our major pentatonic scale. Then next one along the neck would be this C shape, scale surrounding that, and here as well. And then finally you've got this kind of G form. So nice and convenient to think of those scale shapes in that way. It's a very musical way to learn your scales, I think, in combination with chord shapes. One further quite interesting theoretical thing with the major pentatonic scale is that you've in fact got 3 major pentatonic scales hiding within the notes of each major scale. So in the G major scale, obviously we've got the G major pentatonic scale, but we've also got the C major pentatonic scale. All of those notes are found within the key of G major, and likewise we've got the D major pentatonic scale. So it's one of the reasons why you can use the major pentatonic to follow the chords in a chord progression. Certainly if you've got a 1-4-5 based chord progression, you can go from the major pentatonic of the 1 chord to the major pentatonic of the 4 and then to the major pentatonic of the 5, and it works and it sounds good. It doesn't sound like you're modulating or changing keys because all of the notes are diatonic to the key of G major. let's move on and talk about the little demonstration that I did at the start of this video. And I've just watched that back, so I think I can more or less remember what I was doing there. And just before we come on to the actual licks themselves, I think it's important to understand the chord progression that I'm outlining here. So that looks like this, and you can see that in the key of G we're starting on the 1 chord and a bar of that, then a bar on the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord again for 2 more bars. Then we repeat that, so it's 1 to 4, back to the 1 again. Then we hit the 5 chord, which is a D, and then we just got a brief minor chord in there as well, so E minor, which is the 6 minor chord, and then the 4 chord and back to the 1 again. So that's our chord progression, and I think my opening phrase was something like this. So quite a common thing this. I'm starting off by just establishing the harmony nice and clearly. So it's a G chord, I'm just playing the G and then like accent on the higher strings, and then I'm into the first of my major pentatonic based fills. So one very common move on the guitar is from this chord shape sliding up to the 3rd, and then you're into this really nice major pentatonic box shape. It falls really nicely under the fingers, and there's lots of music that you can find in this little shape. So if you just think about your chord shape, there's the root and then 2nd, and then you can slide up to the 3rd there. So root, 2nd, 3rd, or you could slide with your 1st finger if you prefer. And then you got this major pentatonic box shape, so the 5th, the 6th, and then the root again, and then the 2nd. And you can really just improvise any number of little fills based out of that box shape. Important thing there is to try and keep in time, so we've got a couple of beats on the chord and then a couple of beats on the fill, so you've got to try and squeeze your fill into those 2 beats and then come back to the chord in rhythm. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That was my opening phrase. Then we're moving to the 4 chord, and I'm really doing a very similar thing. So out of this A form bar chord shape, we can do exactly the same move. So sliding up from the root, 2nd, 3rd, and we've got this nice major pentatonic box shape. Exactly the same idea, but played on a different string set and out of a different chord shape. We head back to the 1 chord and more of the same. And the next phrase is something like this. So something a bit different here. I'm playing double stops on the top 2 strings, and all of these double stops are found in the major pentatonic scale, in the G major pentatonic scale. And really I'm just thinking about joining up the dots in the scale shapes almost here. If you can visualize those scale shapes clearly, it's quite easy just to join the dots across pairs of strings and you end up with this kind of thing. So that's just double stops in the G major pentatonic scale, and most of those intervals are fourths, but you've kind of got this major 3rd in there. You need to play that just to make it conform to the scale, and you can just improvise lots of nice licks based around those shapes. And I think the precise lick I play is this. So starting off with those double stops on the top 2 strings, then coming down to the B and the G with these 2 little shapes, again straight out of the scale, or you could think about that as being from the chord shape as well. So it's kind of the 6th, major 6th sound going to the major triad. Then we head into the next 4 bars. On the G, I think it's just more of the same thing. And when I go to the C for the second time, I do something a bit different. I play this. So again, I'm starting from the chord shape. That's my jumping off point. I'm up into my little box. But then I'm hitting this note here. This is actually an addition to the major pentatonic scale. I'm kind of cheating a little bit here, but adding in this B flat note here, which is the flattened seventh in relation to the C root node. And I'm just playing that at the same time as this C note, and you get that nice kind of bluesy dissonant sound. And then we're back to the G again, and this time I'm sliding up along the A string to hit the root of the G chord up here. And my next feel is this. Very Hendrix-y, this particular one. So I'm thinking about this G chord shape, this C form shape, and you've got your major pentatonic scale here. So I'm playing this little move. I've got a D and a G, and then I'm hammering on with my third finger. And with a lot of these Hendrix style things, you've got a double stop and then you're hammering down with the third finger. So whether it's this or all of this stuff. And the idea is that when you hammer down, you still want to have two notes ringing at the same time. So you just need to kind of be on the tip of your third finger so you're not muting that G. So, and then I'm just doing the same move down here, and you've got that same finger shape in this pattern of the major pentatonic scale. It's also in this pattern here. So we've got, and then I'm just coming down the scale, and then I've got a little fourths based idea. This time we've got fourths on the B and the G string, so starting with an A and a D and just sliding that up and back again. We're then walking up to the 5 chord, just going up to the root of the 5 chord, which is this D, and the next fill. So thinking out of this form of the D major pentatonic scale, sliding up to this little double stop shape. So this is kind of thirds based. There's a note in there which is non-major pentatonic. And then we're hitting this E minor chord, and there I'm playing quite simply. I'm just playing an open E minor chord down in the open position. And you've got some open string embellishments available to you off of that chord shape. And the same thing off of a C chord. And then you're back home to the 1 chord once again. So I think that's loosely what I played at the start of this video. And I'm not suggesting you learn this note for note. I prefer that you just took some of these ideas and made them your own. But having said that, I'm going to try and just put all of that together for you at a slow tempo. Since you asked, let me take you through the gear that I'm using today. Got my Strat out, which I've not played for a little while. This is one of the newer models. It's a 60s Strat reissue of one kind or another. And yeah, Strats are great, aren't they? So always sound good. I think of all my guitars, it's one of the most comfortable to hold and to play. And I'm plugged straight into my Deluxe today, no pedals at all. And sometimes I think that's the best approach and gets you the best sounds. And it does seem to me that very often when you're plugged straight into an amp, things are just a bit more responsive and dynamic. And with this Deluxe, I've got the volume about 4, maybe 5, and that's where the magic starts to happen. And it's quite a clean sound until you start digging in, and then it starts growling and breaking up a little bit. So it's quite a magical thing. That's it for this video. Hope you found it interesting. Hope I've given you some ideas that you can play around with and try and work into your own playing. I shall tab out the little piece that I played at the top of this video note for note. I'll put that up on my Patreon page. And thanks very much for watching. I shall see you next time.